No amps were harmed in the making of this video, and it's all because of this. This is of course the IK Multimedia TONEX Pedal. So today's video is going to be a deep dive into this pedal, the TONEX. And I'm going to go through the burning question of whether or not it's a game changer or just a gimmick. And in this video, I'm going to go through the features, the tones, and the impact it's had on my playing and recording right here in the studio. I couldn't resist buying this because I was really curious what it could do and whether it's going to work for me in terms of capturing my amp tones. And I'm going to give you my totally honest opinion and experiences about this unit, all the highs and the pitfalls, and answer the question of whether it lives up to being a game changer or it falls short and is just a gimmick. I actually bought this with my own money. It's not a sponsored video by IK Multimedia or anything like that. I wanted to check this out for myself, and my purpose here is so that you guys and girls can make an informed decision about whether or not you want to check out the unit or cross it off your wish list. But before I dive into all of the features of this unit, I want to give a huge shout out to Mana Iwanaga, who's my bass player friend from over in Japan. She is absolutely incredible, and she wrote that track which you just heard a clip of. You're going to hear the full track at the end of the video, so stick around for that. She is such a talented bass player, and I kind of changed some parts, but for the most part she wrote pretty much everything, which was just mind-blowing when she sent it to me. So do me a huge favor, head over to her channel and give her some love and subscribe to it as well. Alrighty, let's get back to TONEX. So what exactly is TONEX? If you don't know already, TONEX is IK Multimedia's tone capture ecosystem. It's essentially their way of bottling up the tone of an amplifier, a cabinet, and even a stomp box in a digital file. And then you can play it either via the pedal or just the software on your Mac or PC. They also have a website called ToneNet where people can share their amp profiles, and there's thousands and thousands of amplifier profiles on there. Everything from your Marshalls, Fenders, Diesels, Soldanos, Engels, any amp you can think of. Just go and type it in the search and you'll probably find it. They have stomp boxes on there as well, because TONEX can actually capture just a stomp box as well. Now my interest in the unit came in a different form. Right by my side here, I have a rack of custom built amplifiers. They're all unique individual amplifiers which I built myself. And the prospect of being able to capture their tones and having them either accessible on my Mac or on a pedal which is this size, that was quite exciting for me because you know what? This is a whole lot easier to take around than all of my amps. That would be a pain in the neck to actually kind of lug around. So I really wanted to find out what it was all about and whether it actually worked. And by the way, if you enjoy videos about gear like this, do me a huge favor, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell notification. It's so much appreciated. It's totally free. It helps my channel to grow and it allows me to bring you more content about stuff like this. So TONEX comes as either just the software which you can buy from the website, or you can buy the pedal and it comes bundled with the software as well. The software is there in order to capture the profiles of the amp. Now for me, the bundle makes the most sense to get because you get the hardware unit plus you get the software bundled in with it. You can buy the software by itself if you never use the hardware, but like I said, hey, 2 for 1, hey? That's a pretty good deal, right? Now the capture process does require some additional hardware. You do need an audio interface with some additional outputs on it, and also a reamp box, or the TONEX capture box, which is a reamp box and a capture box as well, in order to send the signal from your computer to your amplifier and then back into your computer. It's a little bit complicated, so I'm not going to go into it in too much detail, but essentially what it's doing is you play into your computer sends the signal to your amplifier via the reamp box, and then it actually takes the signal from your amplifier back into the TONEX capture, and then it sends it to your audio interface, and then it sends it through the TONEX software, and then it captures it. Easy, right? Now, setting it up is a little bit tricky, and it took me a few attempts, and I think I did actually message the guys at IK Multimedia to ask for their advice about a couple of things before I got everything running just right. Now I have it running, I have it hardwired into my studio, and there's literally a cable which comes out of the TONEX capture box, which I plug into my amplifier, and then it does everything. Everything is routed and properly just set up so that whenever I need to do it, it takes me a few minutes to get all set up, rather than doing it all over again and plugging everything in and then something not working and then head scratching and stuff like that. But now that it's working, I can do as many captures as I want. And because my amps are all unique and individual and all have like switches and stuff which change things on them, I can do as many captures as I want. The other thing that I have been able to do with it is capture my stomp boxes. I have a large collection of tube screamers, and I've managed to capture them all through my JP69 custom plexi right into TONEX. And I have all of those models available at my fingertips. Now when you go through the capture process, you can either do a guitar or bass, and then there are 5 different setups that you can capture. And how the capture process works is that the TONEX software actually plays music through your amplifier, so guitar playing DI tracks which they have programmed into the software, and then it's listening to the signal returning into TONEX itself. And that's how it determines how to create the profile. So this process takes about 5 minutes. It plays various files and various types of music through your amplifier, and then it's listening out for the response of that amplifier. Then what it does is it processes it, and there are 3 levels of processing which are available. There's the fast level, which takes about 5 minutes to create a file. There's the default level, which takes about 15 or 20 minutes. And then there's an advanced level, which is the highest quality, and that takes about an hour 15, hour 20 on my Mac, which is an M1 Studio Mac. And I know that's a little bit of a long time, but that's the best quality that you're going to get. And to be perfectly honest, when I'm doing captures, that's what I always set it to. I always set it to the advanced. I don't mind just leaving it and then walking away and doing something else in the meantime, and then coming back to a really high quality profile. All right, I've been blah-blahing about the unit for a little while now. So I know you're going to be asking, how does it actually sound? What are my thoughts on it? Well, to be honest, it sounds freaking awesome. I really like it. It's not perfect, and I'll go into that a little bit later in the video, but it does a really, really good job, in my opinion, of capturing not just the sound of my amps, but also the feel of them. There's a certain thing that happens when you're playing through a tube amp. There's a certain feel to it. You know, you can feel it under your fingers. And when I'm playing through the TONEX, it feels like I'm actually plugged into one of my amps, which is crazy. It's very, 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 very cool. I love that about the unit. There's a lot of things to like about the whole TONEX ecosystem. First, like I said, is the sound. It does sound very, very good. Like I said, it's not perfect, but it is very close. I'd say probably like 99.5% there with the sound. The simplicity of it is awesome as well, especially the pedal. The software is very intuitive as well. It's made for basically anybody. So even if you have a basic knowledge of how to do stuff on a computer, you'll be able to figure out how to work the TONEX software. The pedal, I love the layout of it. Very, very simple. Basically, you have a gain control, bass, middle, treble, and then a volume. Just like an amplifier. There are some additional features on the pedal itself as well. Firstly, you have a model select button there, so you can actually change the amp models and the cab models on the fly on the pedal itself. I usually do this via the software, but you can actually do it on the unit if you want to. The other thing that it has is a knob for the presets, so you can kind of cycle through the presets and choose the one that you want to use. The main knobs at the bottom also have an alternative function because the software actually includes a couple of effects. There's some reverb, there's compression, and there's also a noise gate. So it does allow you to access those parameters directly from the pedal itself. And the final 2 controls on the alternative function are the depth and presence, which I find to be extremely powerful controls on the TONEX software and also the hardware unit as well. The other thing I love about it is the resolution. It actually runs at 192 kilohertz, 24-bit, which is super, super high. It doubles up as an audio interface if you want to just plug into this and record your tones directly from this as an audio interface into your Mac or your PC, which is pretty damn cool. The size of it is excellent as well. It's tiny. Look, it fits into my hand. It's like a large stomp box essentially, or a couple of small stomp boxes. Fits easily onto a pedal board, and essentially you can have like a mini rig which you can take around wherever you want with just a couple of pedals in front and back, and plug into a power amp or the power amp section of a tube head or something like that. So really versatile in terms of its size as well. Now this can hold up to 150 presets on there, which is a huge amount. And it has 3 buttons at the bottom where you can select the presets that you would like to play. How this all works is the presets are set into groups of 3. So you can bank up and down by pressing either these 2 buttons or these 2 buttons for the bank up or the bank down. And then you choose one of the 3 which are in that group of 3. So you could set it up as a clean rhythm and lead, which is really versatile. You would have all of your amp channels right there at your feet. I also love the switching on this. It's very smooth. It's got a definitely nice big click to it, and it goes through the presets really quickly and easily. And I haven't found any delay between like switching. So if I was using this live, it would be pretty cool to do because I could switch between my sounds very smoothly. One of the other things I really like about TONEX is that right out of the box there are loads of really good sounds already built into the software and the pedal itself, so you can get going with just the sounds which are built in. You don't have to profile amps. You can download a ton of them from TONET as well, so there's a lot of resource behind TONEX now, so you can really get some great guitar tones without actually profiling any of your own amps. I think that's a real bonus for this. And talking about guitar tones, it does clean and overdriven guitar tones just as well as each other. In my profiles and also the ones I've downloaded and the ones that are built in, they're just as rich as each other, and it's really enjoyable playing them. My own clean tones and overdriven tones, of course, they're going to be my favorite ones, and I find that they're really nice and fat and juicy and just lovely to play. There's so much richness in them, so it's really cool that that is available in this package. And this leads me to my next major like of TONEX. Because of my collection of amps and all the options they have, it's actually quite tricky to audition all of my amplifiers and my stomp boxes, my tube screamers, because I have so many. The time it takes to actually plug into each of them and then audition them and see if they're going to work for the mix, etc, it's time consuming because I have to plug into individual amps, etc. Having everything as profiles allows me to cycle through everything really quickly and audition stuff, and this makes it so easy for me to figure out whether the amp tone is going to work for the track that I'm working on at the moment. That's a really big bonus for me with this. And likewise with all of my overdrive pedals. Like I said, I've got about 18 tube screamer pedals. They all sound a little bit different, but to audition all of them, it is so time consuming. I've got to pick one and basically just be happy with the tone if I like it. But having everything in this digital platform allows me to cycle through everything super quickly and figure out which one's going to fit the mix absolutely perfectly. I absolutely love that about TONEX. I also find that the amp profiles respond really well to my guitar's volume control. When I turn down the volume, then the gain reduces, especially if I'm using something like a profile of my JP69 custom plexi. When I roll down the volume, I want to hear that drop in gain. I want to do that whole Van Halen thing where I can actually drop it down so it's a clean sound, a slightly dirty clean sound, but very tiny bit of dirt on it. Now what I find with kind of amp modelers and things like that is it doesn't respond as well. The response is very linear in terms of volume, so the gain doesn't reduce as much. But here it actually feels like I'm playing one of my amps. I'm rolling down my guitar volume and the gain is being actually shaven off the actual amp, which is fantastic. I love that about this. Very, very responsive, and it feels very dynamic to play because of that. My other like about it is that it works really well with pedals. If you're putting a distortion pedal or an overdrive pedal in front of it, then it acts like an amplifier, which is exactly what you want this unit to do. You want the amp profiles to react like you're putting your favorite overdrive pedal into your favorite tube amp, right? And this does it. And likewise on the back end, you can plug in delays and reverbs from the output and then into a power amp or something like that. Now, people have questioned why this doesn't have an effects loop. Well, this is basically supposed to be an amp with an output on it. And I know that usually on a tube amp, you have the loop sitting between the preamp and the power amp. Here, you have preamp, power amp, and then you have the effects. It's essentially like being in a recording studio. So when I record my tracks in here, I actually record all the guitars dry and add in the effects within Logic when I do my mix. They aren't recorded wet with the effects most of the time because I want the option to actually dial in the effects to the exact point where they sound good in the mix. So think of this as a tool which you're going to set up like a studio rather than a tube amp with an effects loop between the preamp and the power amp. Does it sound as good? Yes, it does. People use this technique in the studio all the time. They have done for years and years and years. They record the guitars dry and then add in the effects. We don't question mixes, do we? So why would we question this not having a loop? It doesn't matter. You can put the delays and the reverbs, modulation effects, or whatever you want after the output, and it sounds just fine. In fact, there's a real clarity to it when you do it that way as well. The other thing I love about this is the price point. It's about 400 bucks. And that's a really reasonable amount for a hardware unit and getting into amp profiling. Now, there are other units out there like the Kemper and the Quad Cortex, which are a lot more expensive than this, but this is actually just 400 bucks. Now, you do need additional software, so the audio interface and also a reamp box, and they can be a couple $100 bucks more. So if you already have that in your studio, then basically this is the only amount you'll spend, another 400 bucks, because you get the software with it as well. And then you can start profiling your amps. Now, I spent a couple $100 more to get the TONEX capture box. My old reamp box had broken, it wasn't working, so I needed to get one anyway, and another one would have cost me about 150 bucks for a good one anyhow. So I decided to just pay a little bit more, and it was about 200 bucks for the IK Multimedia version. So that's something that you do need to take into consideration, but overall it is a cost-effective way to profile amps. One of the other really cool things about the unit is that it runs off 9-volt power supply. So you can plug it into a power supply unit on your pedal board and run it that way. This makes it really easy to incorporate into a pedal board setup. So there is a lot that I like about the TONEX. It is a very, very cool unit. Alrighty, onto the gripes that I have with the unit. And I have a few, but they're very minor. So the first one is actually setting it up to capture. Now, you don't do that with the TONEX pedal itself, but you do that with the software. And getting all of that working and getting all of the routing just perfect so that the signals being sent from your computer into your amplifier and then back into your computer, and then TONEX is hearing it. It took a little while. It took plugging in and unplugging and checking this and checking levels and etc. It took me about maybe 2 days to actually get it working in the first place, and then maybe another day to perfect it. But once it was there, I left it as it was, and it's been rock solid since then. And I literally have done a couple hundred profiles of my amplifiers with the TONEX software, and it's been fantastic. If you'd like to check out some of the profiles that I've done of my custom amps, you can find me on TONEX under the username JGuitar. So go and check that out. I will be doing some more comprehensive packs which will be available through my web store as well really soon. They're going to be very cool because I have some big plans for those. So keep an eye out for those as well. But in the meantime, check out the free ones that I have on ToneNet. The next thing that I noticed with the unit was that it doesn't capture the tone absolutely perfectly. The tone it captures is a little bit darker than the tone of the amp. And once you go through the capture process and it's processed everything, you can actually compare the sound of your amplifier with the profile that it's created. You can switch back and forth between them to make sure that the sound is the same. And what I notice is that there's a little bit less presence on the capture than there is on my actual amplifier. It's not a huge deal because what you can then do is once you've saved your profile, you can just add a little bit of presence via the amp model, via the GUI on the TONEX software, and then save it as a preset. And then it basically sounds pretty much identical as my amplifier. So I never worry about that. The other thing that I notice is that there's about 2 or 3 dBs worth of gain less than my actual amplifier. There are some workarounds with this. When you go through the whole capture process, at the end of the process, there is a trim knob on there so that you can add a little bit more gain or take a little bit of gain away. I always end up adding a little bit of gain. You can also just set up your amplifier with a boost pedal, which you kick in while the capture process is taking place, so that you're giving it a 2 or 3 dB boost into the front end, and that kind of compensates for the loss when it captures the profile. Now maybe these things can be fixed via the software, but this has been out for about a year now and it hasn't happened yet, so I'm not that optimistic about them actually doing that, but hopefully they will at some point and they'll address these tiny little points. The other thing is the screen. It's kind of cool, you know, it's very basic and it does scroll through stuff when you kind of like go through your presets there. It'll scroll through your whole preset. I have long presets and names on there, so you know, I've got to wait to see what the end of the name says. It would have been great if they had like a liquid crystal display like on a Hot Tone Ampero or something, where you could see the full chain of what was going on and which cab is on there, etc, etc. But we're stuck with this at the moment, and like I said, it's a minor gripe for me. It would be great to have something like that. Maybe they'll do it on the next iteration of the TONEX pedal. One of the major gripes that I have with the TONEX is that when you have a medium or low gain amp profile and then you try and gain it up within the software, it doesn't respond very well in my opinion. What tends to happen is the gain sounds like you're just turning up the preamp and it's not affecting the power amp, and you get these artifacts and it gets a bit fizzy and a bit strange sounding. So that's one of my dislikes about the unit. But like I said, there aren't many things that I dislike about it, but that is one of the things. And the way that I work around this personally is when I do an amp profile, I do a high gain amp profile, and then I just turn the wick down within the software. That seems to respond much better with TONEX than turning the wick up in the software and getting all those artifacts and weird tones and stuff. So I do it the opposite way. And the way that I work around this is that when I do an amp profile, I'll do a high gain amp profile, and if I want less gain, then I'll just turn it down in the software, and that seems to respond a lot better than turning the gain up within the software. The final very minor gripe that I have with the pedal is that the effects are limited on there. I would have loved for them to include a delay on the unit as well. When I set up my sounds, I usually just use some delay and reverb, so having a delay on here would have made it an absolutely phenomenal unit for me. It's still a very awesome unit, and it would make sense in terms of the 2 outputs. If there was like a ping pong delay on there, then the 2 outputs make sense. Having a stereo output on here, it makes me scratch my head as to why you would need that. But anyways, that's how the unit is. Like I said, it's a minor thing. Maybe they'll include it as a software update at some point. Hopefully, fingers crossed, IK, if you're listening, please add a delay to the unit. That would be very, very damn cool. So there you go. They are my likes and gripes of the unit. Like I said, I'm so positive about this unit. I love it. It is so damn cool. I have been using this. When I was using it for the track, it was just such a pleasure to do because it felt like I was playing my amps. I could hear my amp tones coming out of my speakers, and that was freaking awesome because it was coming from this unit. It wasn't me playing through my actual amplifiers. That's pretty stunning. Now there is some competition out there. Obviously Kemper's been doing this for a long time, and they've just released the Kemper Player as well, which actually does have things like delay on it. It's a little bit more expensive. It's around $600, whereas this is $400. And with the Kemper Player, you can't capture onto there, and Kemper don't have a software unit where you can actually just profile amps into, let's say, your Mac or your PC. If they did do that at some point, that would be phenomenal. I think the Kemper Player would be pretty popular, but I doubt they will do that because as soon as they do that, their hardware units, nobody's going to buy them. So the chances of that happening are pretty slim, I reckon. There's also Neural DSP, who have the Quad Cortex, which is another unit which can capture. Now the captures I've heard of that unit, they don't sound exactly like the amplifiers which they are profiling. I have found that all of the units change the sound a little bit. The Kemper makes things a little bit brighter. The Quad Cortex, it kind of captures a little bit of the essence, but I always find the tones to be a little bit different, noticeably different than the actual amplifiers. So for me, that's not an option. Headrush also have a unit which can profile amps now as well. I've not checked out that unit or sound comparisons, so I can't really comment on that one. But this one, I do love it. I am so glad that I added it into my studio. And you know, for my workflow, it's so easy to have this on my desk and just being able to flick through all of my tones, or via the software. So for me, this is definitely a game changer. It is not a gimmick in my opinion. I love having this in the studio, and I think you should check it out if you want to profile some of your amps, or you just want to check out some amp profiles. Alrighty guys and girls, I hope you enjoyed that. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. I am going to play you the track in a second. First I'll play you in a full mix. Such a pleasure working with Mana. A huge thank you to Mana Iwanaga for inviting me to play on that track. Such a pleasure to do. We're going to be doing more in the future, so look out for that. And then I'm going to play you some isolated tracks so that you can hear my amp profiles all by themselves as well. Have a great day. If you haven't done so already, please do hit the subscribe button and the bell notification so you know when new videos are going to be coming out. And if you would like to support the channel, then you can head over to my web store and check out my new Guitarism t-shirts. They're very cool, and I know you'll love them. Or you can check out my Patreon page as well. You can join there for free, or if you'd like to check out some of the packages, get some behind the scenes and some freebies as well, then you can join up there as well. I will see you really soon with another video. By the way, Happy New Year. Yeah, we just got into 24. Awesome. More gear coming soon. In the meantime, check out the tones of the TONEX pedal. Enjoy. I'll see you soon. Bye.